Hey everybody, it's Dr. Mark here. I'm here with Rico Blackman, who is our community organizer at the Homeless Coalition, and we're really excited to be here with you today to let you know everything that you need to know about Issue 24 so you can share with your family and friends how this is making a better and brighter and safer and stronger future for the city of Cincinnati. We know that Issue 24 will restore the earnings tax to what it was in 2020. And if you didn't notice your taxes went down, you probably won't notice that they're going up. This is to invest in our community, bringing 400 to 700 units of housing to Cincinnati every year to support low and moderate income families, and that it will create a board that will help make sure that the money gets where it's needed. This will be used for home ownership, but also for repairs, and mortgage assistance, rental assistance, and all sorts of great things. It's a super flexible program that is built upon lots and lots of research and things that we've learned over the years. So Rico, what is going on in the next few days? Something pretty big, right?
Yeah, a lot is going on. We're in the last 5 days before Election Day, which means we will be getting out to vote on Tuesday, November 7th, from 6:30 all the way to 7 o'clock all across the city. And we need your help to make sure that people know to vote for Issue 24. Vote yes for Issue 24. So we need folks to be at the polls talking about Issue 24 with people who are going to vote. If you're interested, please reach out to me, Dr. Mark. Reach out to us as soon as you can. We need your help to get people to the polls, to talk to friends, families, strangers, acquaintances, to get everybody on board because we need more truly affordable housing in our city.
And you can easily go to cincyhousingforall.com and sign up to work on the polls. We have lots of volunteer opportunities coming up in the next few days, including some work on Saturday as well, and Monday, and Sunday, and Tuesday, and tomorrow. So
we got a lot going on, from canvassing to working the polls to phone banking to anything else you can name. We are working hard here at the coalition and here across different organizations across the city. So please reach out on our website.
And the best thing you can do today is let your friends and family know to vote yes on Issue 24. We have a lot of information on cincyhousingforall.com where you can look and read the actual charter amendment. That's something that Rico's been suggesting to a lot of folks. Because we're getting a lot of mixed messages, but all the information's right there on the website about that. And we're actually going to go through the slides so you can get really deep into and have a very strong understanding about why Issue 24 is a great future for the city of Cincinnati. And we're really excited about it. I mean, we've been, like the video showed earlier, we've been working on this since 2016. The need for affordable housing has been growing since the 1980s. This is not an issue just here in Cincinnati. So fortunately, there's over like 1,000 affordable housing trust funds all across this country. So what we've done is we've looked to a lot of them to find out what they're doing it, how they're doing it. And we've been able to take the best parts of that and make this into the best policy that the city has seen in decades. I mean, that's what's so excited about that. This is great policy. So we're really excited about Issue 24 and for folks getting out. Now, if you have any questions about Issue 24, make sure you're putting those into the chat right now. And then also make sure you shared it. Share this when you are out here, because we know that it's so important for us to get out and vote. And every time you vote and you let people know about it, it makes us that much closer to getting to where we need to be, right?
Absolutely.
So thanks, Don, for voting. We really appreciate that. We want to make sure that we're uplifting the voices of our supporters. We do have some questions already prepared that people have been asking us that we want to clarify as we move forward, but we do want to get to the presentation. I want to get right into it, and we're going to go ahead and get started with that here. And we have, you can find this on cincyhousingforall.com. If you just go to the main page, you can find the slideshow. So if there's somebody who's asking questions about it or they want to know more, you can find this there. Now, what's so great about this is that this is truly a community-led effort here in Cincinnati. And this has been a process that actually everyone has had a seat at the table with issue 24. And I'm including politicians and I'm including all these folks. They've all had a seat at the table. And we have taken what we learned over the last few years to create the most strong network of folks that are supportive of this. So you can see, local Cincinnati NAACP, but as well as KUFA and ACLU and Peasley and Muse and Over the Rhine Community Housing and Pro Seniors and MARC, the Metropolitan Area Religious Coalition of Cincinnati, and Caracol and Beloved Community Church. There's over a dozen pastors that are supporting issue 24. So make sure that you check out this slideshow. And if you, Rico, have anything that you want to add, you can always just go ahead and add that. We are really excited because this will create truly affordable housing. And when we say truly affordable housing, we're talking about families who are living at minimum wage or even higher than that, that are spending more than 30% of their income towards their housing. And by truly affordable, we're focusing it on for folks who live in the city of Cincinnati. So this is a strategy to support our communities, to make them stronger, to make our housing stock better and stronger and safer, so that we can continue to have multi-generational folks living in our community that aren't just being pushed out because the cost of housing goes up. And what's so great about this is that unlike the current Affordable Housing Trust Fund, issue 24 will provide for a homeowner assistance. So whether that's buying your home, keeping your home, upkeep of your home, and also for mortgage support, which the current trust fund can't do that. And so this really separates when we're looking at issues like redlining and the impact of segregation and anti-Black racism here in Cincinnati. We can't just address that through renting, right? We need to make sure that folks can have generational wealth and they can build that through home ownership. And because of the way the costs are going for housing is going up so much, it's more out of reach for people, right? So issue 24 is something that will help folks who have been traditionally harmed by redlining and the segregation and discrimination that happens in housing even today, which is pretty cool. So it is just a 0.3%. So that means for every $1,000 someone makes, this will take $3 out of your paycheck, right? So thinking about that, most Cincinnati families will pay less than $11 a month. And like I keep telling people, if I can pay $5 a paycheck and 500 families can have a place to stay tonight when it's this cold, that's a huge deal. Like that's something Cincinnati should be super proud of, right? Like this is something that we can put pride in our city to say like, look, if we put a little bit together, it's going to create a huge impact in the city of Cincinnati.
It's like having a Netflix subscription, right? You watch Netflix and you pay to watch it every single month and you enjoy the shows. If you pay $11, $10 a month for affordable housing, I think that's pretty worth it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I would kind of rather have that than my Netflix account.
Yeah,
just a little bit. Yeah. I mean, housing's super important, right? And we know we can't wait because we see. I mean, if you don't see people suffering, consider yourself lucky. But our member organizations, the folks that the supporters that you're seeing scroll across the bottom, they're open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They never close their doors, and yet there is not enough spaces and shelters. There's not enough housing, right? This is why we can't wait. And we know that housing is healthcare. When people have access to housing, that is it's a healthcare justice issue, right?
Yeah. And you know what? The thing that I really want to hammer down on here too is that it's not just for people experiencing homelessness. Yes, there are people experiencing homelessness that are in need, but there are plenty of people who are not experiencing homelessness that are in need as well. So this is affecting everybody, not just one person, not just one sector of people. everybody.
Right. And we're talking about folks that are needing support for households that are making up to $80,000 a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we know in Cincinnati, your household, if you're not making $50,000 a year, you're basically sinking, right? You don't have the opportunities that other people have. You need to have that basis. So folks that are making less than $50,000 a year need support. I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands of households here in Cincinnati who are paying over 30% of their income towards their housing. And that is a huge issue, right?
One statistic, too, that is really striking is that 7 out of 10 seniors who are making up to $80,000 are struggling to pay for their housing. I don't understand that one.
Right.
And there's really no answer to it. But Issue 24 can alleviate a lot of that pressure and create homes that are affordable for seniors.
And the seniors who are seeing their taxes go up, their property taxes, this can provide that support to make sure that people can stay in their homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want seniors to age in place, right? We want to make sure that people who are in our city that own their own homes are able to stay here. Like,
Right.
It makes our communities more stable when you have more access to affordable housing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that last year, just over 1 month, in July, I think it was, the rent rose 38% in the city of Cincinnati. And this is by design, right? This is because of the way that the city has used its tax benefits to support out-of-state development. The whole abatement program was created to encourage out-of-state development, out-of-state investment into our city.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you
Mm-hmm.
looked at it, if you went to the City of Cincinnati website, when it talked about abatements, it said, we want to get out-of-state developers to invest in the city of Cincinnati. And what we've seen for folks like Vision and Beyond, they've come in and bought over 1,000 units in less than a year during 2020. And their goal is to flip those low-performing units, those affordable units, into market rate. And the city encourages that by doing these tax abatements for when they fix up the buildings, and then they can charge more rents, right? But there's nothing in the city that requires them to stay affordable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we do have outside investment that's coming in here that's buying thousands of units and is turning those into market rate housing. What we don't have is outside investment coming in here and creating affordable housing, right?
Yes.
This is such a grassroots effort that the folks who are going to be utilizing this fund are generally going to be local folks who have been doing this for so many years, but are now facing these higher costs of building, these higher costs of taxes, property taxes, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Issue 24 is not working to bring out of the city, out of town developers here, right, to buy a property and to flip it into whatever. We want to encourage developers here in Cincinnati, like Over the Rhine Community Housing, to buy more property and make it affordable housing for folks. So we're working for developers here in this city.
Absolutely. And so we are really excited about this opportunity. I don't know if you can tell how excited we are, but we are super excited about this because we have seen that 1 in 3 of us, 1 in 3 households in the city of Cincinnati cannot afford our rent or our mortgage, our housing costs, right? When we think about housing costs, it's also your electric bill, right? We see how much Duke is taken from us every year. They get increases, because of the Ohio whatever, right? So we see that our costs are going up for our heating and cooling costs. Our insurance costs are going up for homeowners. So, your escrow is going up. All these housing costs are going up. And we especially see this as an issue for folks who are making under $50,000 a year, under $30,000 a year. And if you think about it, $30,000 a year is basically a minimum wage. Like if you're working full-time, and there's no place in this country where a full-time minimum wage worker can afford a 2-bedroom apartment. And that's why we see so many children experiencing homelessness is because their parents are working full-time and they can't afford a 2-bedroom apartment. And we know because, we hear from a lot of people all the time about how much they can't find a place to live and all that kind of stuff.
All the time.
All the time. And there's a lot of folks that don't know, right? Like
Yeah.
there's people who are like, oh, there's affordable housing. And then they've been living in their place for 10 years and all of a sudden their rent's going up 26%, 35%, 50%, 200%. And then they go to try to find a place and they're like, oh, I can't find an apartment for $750, like at all, right? Inside the city, right?
Yep. Had a couple of friends who told me their rent went up 200, 300. Had a person go up 500. I mean, it's impacting everybody from the richest to the poorest. It's affecting everybody in between, at the top, at the bottom, whatever you want to say, right? So how do we fix that? It's a 24. How do we be able to make a change? It's a 24. Vote yes on truly affordable housing here in Cincinnati.
And what we're also seeing is that, the costs have gone up, but Black families are hit the hardest, right?
Ooh,
so we're seeing that,
facts.
this is something that is a problem for us because, sorry, I don't know which one's supposed to be. There we go. Because we know in Hamilton County, right? So Hamilton County and Cincinnati, obviously they're different places, right? But we know in Hamilton County, over half of the Black families in Hamilton County are paying more than 30% of their income towards their housing, right? And then we see that people are paying 50% of their income. Half of those folks are paying over 50% of their income towards their housing, right? Some people might be paying 85, 90, 100% even, of their income towards their housing. And then they have to rely on friends and family and social services. And then, this becomes, you're right on the edge of experiencing homelessness. So one crisis comes up, what are you going to do, right? And so we know that this is a racial justice issue because over 80% of Cincinnati Black households will be able to benefit from this. And it's like 60% of all households in the city, right? 62% of all households will be able to benefit from issue 24. So what that means is if anyone's telling you to vote against it, they're asking you to vote against your own self-interest, against the self-interest of the city. And we'll get to that when we talk about the questions, because I don't want to get into that quite yet, but just think about that, right? Look at the organizations that are scrolling at the bottom. Share this video right now. Make a comment, give us a heart when you're, seeing this so other folks can see this. Because honestly, if you look at these organizations, you read the charter amendment and you see what it really says, people say, well, why wouldn't I support this? Right? And so when you see the folks who aren't supporting it, then you have to question, okay, what is their motive? Like what's going on with this? So we can see that the new jobs that have been created since 2008 and more recently, they don't pay enough. They don't pay enough for people to afford a $1,200, $1,400 studio apartment, right? And we're thinking about families with children, then we're now just, doubled up and couch surfing and all the different types of homelessness that people are seeing. So if the wages aren't keeping up and people are able to be put out of their home to the gentrification that's happening from these out-of-state developers who are creating affordable housing, thank you for the likes, then what are people supposed to do? So that's why this Affordable Housing Trust Fund is so important. Also, when the ARPA money, all that kind of stuff, and the county funds, those go mostly outside of the city of Cincinnati. So if you hear the county talking about we're dedicating this amount of funds, understanding that we want this, so this will be focused right on the city of Cincinnati. So we basically, again, want to restore the earned income tax to what it was back in 2020. And that was passed back in 1973 for the bus system. And that was a racial justice issue too, right? There were a lot of folks in the community who weren't able to access the bus. There's a whole story behind all that. But that is why it was created. And this will cost us less than $11 a month. Most households, like the majority of Cincinnati households will be paying less than $11 a month to be able to ensure 400 to 700 families have a place to stay. Like it almost seems like, too good to be true, folks.
Right. And, it is a sell, right? Because we don't want to pay more for anything, right? But we also don't want to pay more for housing.
Right.
And if we are going to pay more for something, it should be housing.
Right.
It should be something that's a basic human need, something that we all deserve and we all need to survive in our society. And not just survive, but to actually thrive, right?
Right. And 62% of all Cincinnati households will qualify for support for this. So that could be mortgage support, that could be fixing up, your building, that could be, helping out with your rental costs, that could be, all these different things are, 62%. So that's why it's so important, is that understanding that, this will be for truly affordable housing here in Cincinnati. So let's look a little bit about the funding source of it. And we just mentioned it's a 0.3% earnings tax. So we're hoping it'll generate between $40 and $50 million a year. That all depends on how much, earnings there are. This would, again, return it to what the bus levy was in 2020, right? And most people would cost about $228 a year. So the median income. But the vast majority of people would be $11 or less on there. So our current earnings tax is less than Columbus, Cleveland, Dayton, Toledo, Akron, Louisville, right? It's less than all of those places, even with this increase, right? So this will still be lucrative for businesses to be here, all that kind of stuff. So let's make sure that we are looking at the funding is reasonable. This is a really good, solid policy that Cincinnati can be proud of. It will target where the need is. And when we get to the questions in a little bit, we'll talk about the current Affordable Housing Leverage Fund and what does that mean. But this will target where the need is. And that's what's so important. And so we kind of split it up in a couple different ways. We wanted to make sure that there were that folks making 30% or less of the AMI, which is about $30,000 a year, that at least 65% of this fund goes there. Mm-hmm. So that means, building new apartments. That means creating a rental assistance fund, right? So that folks can say, look, I'm short on my rent this month. Can I get some money to make sure I can stay in my home? We call that shelter diversion, right? So making sure we're diverting people from shelters by providing that funding for them. And then this also means maintenance. So landlords can take the money and use it to fix up stuff. So if they've got a roof that needs to be fixed, or their gutters are messed up, or there's some mold in the basement, right? So this fund can be used to support families that make $30,000 a year or less. But we also know that families making $50,000 a year or less also need the support, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So really quick, before we talk about that, this is one of 3 families are making 30% or less, which is about $30,000 a year. In Cincinnati, that would be at this level, that could get the support, right? And then here, a 2-bedroom would cost no more than $645 a month. Maybe we should have started with that.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have started with what the affordability means, right? So that means a family, that has a 2-bedroom family or 2-bedroom apartment would rent for no more than $645 a month. And so there's about 228,000 units that are short in that area. So this is where we see the greatest need, right? But we also said, look, families making up to 50% AMI, which is about $50,000 a year, mm-hmm. They are, because we'll talk about that in a minute, but they are also at need. And a 2-bedroom wouldn't cost more than $1,045 a month. So these are folks making up to $50,000 a year. And this is also, could also be an area to provide emergency housing services. So again, we want to make sure that people don't end up in the shelters, that they don't end up couch surfing and doubling up, that they have a stable place to stay. And for homeownership, you can make up to $80,000 a year with our current AMI. So this is where most Cincinnati households are in. This is over 60% of Cincinnati households. Over 80% of Black households, fit in this category of 80% AMI or less. So this is focused at the need. And that's just, all these words and these great pictures and these graphics are super important, but it's focused at the need, which is so important. So just if you want to look at how it's funneled, folks with the need at 65% or less of the funds. 30% would be for moderate incomes, and up to 5% for administrative costs. So there would be folks who, are making sure that this is functioning, that the money. Hopefully you didn't hear anything that was against the rules. So somehow the lights just flickered because we know that everybody's with us on this. So those are kind of the money parts. I think people want to understand that, but even bigger than that is this is about equity and justice, right? So folks have said, well, why is this part of the charter, right? Why are we putting this as part of the charter? Is because that's the only way. The charter is the city's constitution. That is the only way that we can require that it goes to the need. Mm-hmm. That it doesn't matter what the administration is, who's the mayor, who's in city council, who's the city manager. The only way that we can ensure that it goes where it is needed is based upon looking at the charter and the city's charter, right? It has to be in the city's charter.
And then once it's in the charter, it stays there, right?
Right, it
doesn't
stays
go
there.
anywhere.
Right, exactly. And that's really great because what we didn't mention is that for folks who get funding through the fund, it will remain affordable forever. So what that means is that we can have a growing stock of affordable housing that isn't just going to expire in 10 years or 15 years or something like that. And then we really have written in there, you should check it out, that this is really to support people who have historically faced housing discrimination and all that kind of stuff, but also that it will make sure that there are units that are visitable and accessible so that people with disabilities are able to have stable housing and, not be stressed out about, am I going to have to be able to, find a place to live, right?
Mm-hmm. It's very critical. I mean, like I said earlier, it has to affect everybody. And those who are, disabled or facing accessibility issues have to be accounted for as well. Just like anybody else, Black folks, white folks, anybody else who is in need deserve to be in a house that's affordable.
Absolutely. So we know, as we said, 62% of Cincinnati households will. Thank you, Rico, so much for being here. Any last moment thoughts you want to have for folks?
Yeah, just thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you all are planning to vote on Tuesday. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your co-workers, tell a stranger on the streets, tell everybody to vote for this. We've been working on this for months, for years now. And to see this win will make everything worth it. And to see people finally have a chance to stay in a place that is not only affordable, but it's also accessible, but it's also safe, and it's also truly affordable forever is something I'm looking forward to. So thank you all for tuning in. I'll talk to you all later.
And connect with Rico if you were able to work on the polls on Tuesday.
Yes.
Go to Cincy housingforall.com and sign up. Thank you so much for being an awesome leader with this, Rico.
Thank you all.
We can't do it without you. And we are going to just kind of keep continuing with this. We do have a couple more slides here. And like we said, 60% of the households will be able to get support from issue 24. So again, it's in everyone's best interest to vote for this. We also know that 80% of Black households will qualify for funding for this. Super important. We need to right some of the wrongs, the institutional racism that exists in our society. And this will create a board that will support the funds to make sure that it goes where it's needed most. And the board will include people who have experienced homelessness, that have that lived experience. We believe that people who have experienced homelessness, have experienced housing instability, are closest to the solution, right? Because they've had that experience of going through it. Again, we're looking at 400 to 700 units every year that are created through the fund. And it could be created or maintained, right? We want to support folks where they are make sure that they have the maintenance, that they have the money to be able to make their home safe and keep their home safe. And together we can do this, right? So this is something that we can't do on our own, but it is something that we can do together. So I'm encouraging everybody to go to cincyhomeless.org. That's our page. You can look that up if you want more information and background. You can also go to Cincy Housing for All to sign up. We need folks to do this last push over the next few days. We have a lot of social media things that you can share. So we've been sharing a lot of videos. You can check those out on the Facebook. Everything you can do to share what's going on, share yes on issue 24, will get us closer to where we need to be. So I want to thank everybody for showing up today, hearing about this. We're really excited. Now, we do have a few questions that folks have asked about issue 24. And, you know, the number one thing that you want to do is, you know, look at these endorsers down here, right? Look at the folks who are endorsing issue 24 and think about, you know, these are folks that have been working in the community for so long. They've been learning about affordable housing trust funds for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. We've been looking at affordable housing trust funds all across this country. There's over 1,000 affordable housing trust funds. And we know that when people look at that charter language, they look at what this will do, it's a no-brainer. There's no reason to not support this. The questions that I have now are going to ask some of the hard questions, and I'm going to just give you an overview. But I will just encourage everyone to go to cincyhousingforall.com, read the charter amendment, share the information that's on there with your family and friends, because if you are seeking justice, if this is something that you're interested in, if you're seeking justice here in Cincinnati, this is the way to do it. Issue 24 is the way to do it. We're hearing people saying it's not the right time. We have to wait for this, that, and the other. This is the time. The time is now. And so the first question that we have is, you know, why hasn't this one is from Melissa. So Melissa asks, why is the Hamilton County Democratic Party saying no on 24? So we know that if we look at the history of affordable housing trust funds, we know that there are folks who are making sure that housing is costing more. So if you think about it, if you're a real estate agent and a house sells, the house is going to sell for X or Z. A real estate agent wants it to sell for more, right? Their interest is to make the percentage off of it, and that's what's important to them, right? So if you think about why these folks have officially not endorsed it, there are people in the Democratic Party that are endorsing issue 24. There are people in the Democratic Party who weren't able to vote to endorse it or not, right? So these endorsements for against issue 24 doesn't represent everybody in that party. So don't feel like you need to be pressured by those folks. Make sure that you read the charter language, check it out for yourself, and ask them, why are they going against all these different organizations that are scrolling across the bottom, right? So there are unions that are for issue 24. There are organizations and individuals that are for 24. We know that this will support over 60% of Cincinnati families and households. So why are folks against it? Is a really good question. And part of that might be in who's funding their campaigns. We know that the funding against issue 24 is funded by mostly 2 rich white men from Indian Hill that don't even live in the city of Cincinnati. So kind of keeping in mind that this is a grassroots effort. And because of that, there are people's egos who get hurt along the way and who might be against this because of their ego. They might be against it because, just like in the segregated 1950s and 60s, people said it's just not the right time, right? But we know this is the right time, because if we don't do this now, we will be further behind. We know we have a over 30,000 unit shortage of affordable housing, so we have to start here. Sally asked who will oversee the funds. So I just mentioned that there will be an advisory board that will be made up of people who create and sustain affordable housing. It will be made up of people who have lived experience with homelessness and housing instability, and it will represent the people. Right now, the Housing Advisory Board that the city has represents corporate interests. You have real estates, bankers, developers. All those folks are on the current Housing Advisory Board, whereas Issue 24 will create a Housing Advisory Board by, for, and with the people, right, that are working in this area. John asked, when was the last time the income tax was raised in Cincinnati and why? So back in 1988, they started something that was the Smale Commission. So, Smale Riverfront Park. Well, he was apparently the CEO of P&G, and they asked him, hey, can you come up with some suggestions? And they came up with over 100 suggestions out of that commission. And one of them was a 0.1% earnings tax increase. Now, as you saw before, Cincinnati has the lowest earnings tax of any of the major cities in Ohio. And what that did was that created more funds to sustain the city. Now, they haven't raised it in that long. And as we know, the cost of living has gone up, inflation has gone up, and the city hasn't responded accordingly. Now, Issue 24 does not stop them from doing that in the future. Issue 24 actually will help them by showing people what our income tax increases can look like and what they can do to stabilize our community. So that was back then. It's been, I don't know, I want to say 30 years since we've had an earnings tax increase. So now is the time, and this is the right reason to do it, to keep people in our city, to keep people safe in their homes, and keep intergenerational folks in our communities. So Roger asked, why does the city say it's got $100 million in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund? And what we have is something called an Affordable Housing Leverage Fund. And the leverage fund does not just contain money for affordable housing. Okay, the leverage fund can be spent on businesses, parking garages, luxury housing, and that's what we've seen, like the Section 108 be spent on in the past. Only 50% of the city funds are dedicated to 80% AMI or less. So the reality is that the leverage fund, the Affordable Housing Leverage Fund, which sometimes they call the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the leverage fund is not required to be spent where the need is. And Issue 24 does just that. The money that goes into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Fund 439, which is what Issue 24 is aimed at, is required to support families that make 80% of the area median income or less. So it's required to go towards families making $80,000 or less. But it's also required where most of the money will go to support families making $30,000 to $35,000 a year or less. And that's where the biggest need is. So in fact, the Affordable Housing Leverage Fund that exists right now, only 16% of it went to where over 90% of the need is in the last year. So while the city is saying, oh, we have all this money, we're creating all these units, first of all, most of those units aren't going to be online for a couple of years. They're just providing gap financing for. So when the city says we created X hundred number of units, what they're actually saying is we provided 1, 2 to 3% of the financing for that unit. So when they say we created 200 units, when they really only put 1, 2, or 3% towards that, that means the city has created 2 to 6 units of affordable housing. Issue 24 will create 500 units of affordable housing or support 700 units of affordable housing every year. So what we know is that Issue 24 will have a clear effect and impact on our community. Whereas, are you all feeling like you have access to affordable housing now, right? No, you don't. And that's what you have to question when you see these comments about that are coming out against issue 24. You say, does this mesh with my reality? Or is somebody questioning my reality out here? So understand that the Affordable Housing Leverage Fund, as it stands today, is not required to match the need. Now, Robert Brown asks, will this result in objective and effective resources to actualize affordable housing? And the answer is yes. We know that part of the math problem of affordable housing is, how do we make sure that the cost of keeping a unit in high quality, in the cost, the fee that someone pays in their rent, how do we make sure that those can equal up? And what the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can do is provide financing to lower people's interest that they have to pay on their loan. It can provide direct funding to help build and sustain and make repairs on buildings. We know that that will then encourage landlords to use the funds to upkeep their buildings, to build new buildings, and then they will have to keep those affordable forever. So the current leverage fund that the city has, they have restrictions that it has to be affordable for the next 10 years. I mean, it's possible, right? They can get a waiver for that, all that kind of stuff. But this will give resources to families to fix up their homes, for their landlords to fix up their homes, to build new homes, and then those to bring down their debt, right? To put money so that their interests their interest rate will be lower, right? And that keeps money in the pockets of our community, right? So this helps small businesses because people are going to have money in their pockets that they're going to be able to spend more money, right? So all the things that come when people have stable housing and safe housing, the health benefits to that, right? Mold remediation, getting rid of asbestos, all those things, blight removal, all those things are included in issue 24 so that we can have stable housing, which will result in those resources that will make housing more affordable, but it'll make it more safe too. I mean, that's another thing that we want to make sure that we're thinking about is, we want to make sure that as we do tenant organizing here in the Homeless Coalition, which I know, Robert, you're very, all about that. Thank you for, everything you've done. But, those health issues that people experience because their housing quality is so low, these can be remediated with the funds from issue 24. In fact, that's what we want. We want families who are, living in a home that's being they're renting their home and their landlord goes to sell it. We want that family to be able to buy that house, and then not have debt on it so that they're able to save for the future, so that they're able to retire, they're able to create generational wealth. And that's what issue 24 will do. This will deconcentrate poverty, right? This will make sure that we are building wealth in all 52 of our neighborhoods here in Cincinnati, which is just an amazing opportunity. So if you have any more questions, put those in the, because we have a couple more here but make sure you put your questions in the comments. Also, make sure you're sharing this, you're liking it, letting people know to vote yes on issue 24. When you do share it, just put like a little message that says, please vote yes on issue 24. And we really appreciate your support here. We have a question from Shirley. Now, hey, Shirley, how's it going? I always enjoy your photography and your connections with the community. So Shirley says, any suggestions for moderation of rental rate increases? Well, Cincinnati is part of a state of Ohio, and the state of Ohio says that we cannot put rental caps, and we can't do what's that called? Rent capping. I'm just having a brain moment here. But we can't do that through legislation. So why issue 24 is so important is because it can provide that rental support that people need when the rent increases. So if your rent goes up 26%, and that increases it over 30% of your income, you'll be eligible to receive rental assistance. And this is so important because this helps keep our communities stable. It helps keep people in their homes. It helps keep the social fabric of Cincinnati together. This also will decrease violent crime. We know that violent crime occurs when people have turf issues and when people get pushed out of their home and then they're in a different neighborhood. This creates instability. So issue 24 will actually help create more stable communities and reduce crime. I mean, no one's out here saying that, but that's the truth, right? We know that when people have a safe and stable place to live, they're less likely to engage in illegal activities. Housing is the basis of everything in our lives. Shirley, thank you for that question. Go ahead, if you have any other questions, make sure you're liking and sharing this. We have a question from Christine who says, how does this relate to issue 22? Now, issue 22, if you don't know, is regarding the sale of the Southern Railway here in Cincinnati. It goes from Cincinnati to Chattanooga. It is currently leased out to Norfolk Southern for about $26 million a year, I believe. And we are not allowed to regulate them. But the reality is that railroad was created to help support the city of Cincinnati in our future of the city. And whenever we look at our bond rating or our Moody's standard rating, they always would say, Cincinnati's rating is strong because, like our credit score, basically, our credit score is strong because we own this railway. This is something that we will never be able to make that railway again, right? No one is ever going to be able to buy the property, 300 and something miles, 400 miles of property to be able to put in a railway again. It is unique. It is a one-of-a-kind asset that they can't even figure out what the cost and the value of that asset is, right? So we've teamed up with the No on 22 folks because we see this as a stabilizing factor in our community. And we also know that once it's gone, it's gone. We won't have it as a resource to leverage again. So the Norfolk Southern is offering us $1.6 billion, which sounds like a lot, but that's the operating budget for 1 year for the city of Cincinnati. So partially, it's just a wrong thing to do because it undervalues the value of the railway itself. It's something that's unique and rare. It can never be built or created again. And it's also something that we know that rail, transportation, not transportation, but rail freight and stuff is going to be important as we challenge with climate change, right? So we know that this is an asset that should stay within the city of Cincinnati. We don't want it to affect our bond rating or the interest that we'll have to pay on things if we go down in rating. So it's really important for us to also realize that the promises that are being made for issue 22, who's making them, right? They're just coming out of thin air. They sent us a big packet, like we're going to do all these things in these communities. Does that make you feel safe, right? Or does that make you feel like concerned that they're just kind of making stuff up? I mean, that's the truth. Like in these mailers, people can make up all sorts of stuff. Now, we don't make up stuff. Like we've been researching this stuff. We've been looking at it. We've been learning everything we can about affordable housing trust funds. We've been at City Hall, all that kind of stuff. All the time. So we know that we're telling the truth, but the reality is if they're promising you the stars, that's probably not true. We know that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, from our experience developing, sustaining affordable housing, working with the rental assistance programs, working with shelters, we know that issue 24, what it will do. And of course, it's going to, take a little bit of time. We have to vote again next November. So this vote this year isn't going to be the final vote. We'll have to vote again next November. You're going to get all sorts of no on whatever that issue number is, probably be issue like that pretty lower number. Which it reminds me, when you do go to vote yes on issue 24, it is on the last page of the ballot, and you have to kind of turn through and look at it, because some people are like, I didn't even see it, but it's at the very end. So make sure you vote through the whole ballot when you go there, and vote no on 22 so that we can sustain this important resource inside of our city. We're the only city that owns a railroad like this. So this is like a unique thing that folks were thinking about 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, and then vote yes on 24. And so we want to make sure that this is so we want to know so Shirley's asking now, how can we have more of a voice in housing projects coming up? So number one is, you want to be involved with your community council. That's always something that's super important, so you can hear what's going on. Also, Affordable Housing Advocates is a great organization here in Cincinnati that pulls together. I mean, there's like, developers and bankers and, folks experiencing homelessness, like all these folks, service providers that are a part of AHA. And so going to the monthly AHA meeting is really important so you can see what's going on. I would suggest checking that out. And the number one thing you can do is, let people know that, you believe that we should have dedicated funding towards affordable housing, and that trickle down housing is not a real thing. So we don't need housing at all levels. We don't need to encourage more people to move in the city of Cincinnati as much as we need to sustain the folks that are here, to maintain the housing that exists now. The greenest house is a house that's already built, but issue 24 will provide funding so that people can fix up their old heating and cooling systems, which, is a climate justice issue. It'll, provide standards. The board will be able to provide standards for sustainability, but also for accessibility and visitability, right? So all those things that are part of those goals that we have as a community under the green umbrella, right? All those goals that we have need money and funds to sustain them and to create them. And issue 24 can do that. So we want you to share this right now. So go ahead and share this video if you can right now. Just click the little share button. Give us a heart and a like so that more people see it. We're so thankful that you were able to come out today and talk about this. The last question was, they are saying that we have to wait for the Futures Commission to come in before we can make any decisions about where our earnings tax can come. Well, I can tell you the Futures Commission is just like the Smale Commission from 1988 and 89. It can make 100 recommendations. The city can and cannot adopt them, but an earnings tax will always require a vote of the citizens of our city. So this is our opportunity. We brought over 12,000 signatures to City Hall, to the Board of Elections, to get this on the ballot. We need all of you to vote yes on issue 24 for affordable housing. Please share the slideshow, share this video, go to Cincy Action for Housing Now.com.org, or go to cincyhousingforall.com. Sign up to go. Shirley, I want to see you at the polls on Tuesday, giving out information, letting people know about issue 24. We still have some yard signs here at the coalition. If you can put those up, change your profile picture to yes on 24. We couldn't do you're not allowed doing the profile, like the things that go around the profiles for issues anymore. You can just say vote, but you can't say like vote for affordable housing. Thanks, Facebook. So just change your profile picture to just yes on 24. That's like one of the easiest things that you can do right now. People will see that you changed it. People are looking up to you right now. If you're watching this, you're a leader because you're interested in learning how to make Cincinnati a more just place, to give us a brighter and better future. And we can do that through issue 24. So I hope this was useful for everybody. I'm about to wrap it up here because I don't want to go in too much of your day. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please share this and make sure you vote yes on issue 24 so that we can have truly affordable housing here in Cincinnati. This will be, we'll see what happens on it. We're going to have a big celebration, hopefully, on Tuesday night. So keep your eyes out for that. But the best thing you can do right now is you can share this. You can let people know that you support it. You can tell them why you support it. I've said things like I'd pay $5 a paycheck to make sure that 500 families have a home tonight. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you, everyone. Robert, thank you, Don, thank you, Shirley, for everything that you've done in contributing, your likes, your hearts, your shares, your comments. We really do appreciate it. Everybody get out to the polls, vote yes on issue 24, and we can make a brighter, better, safer, stronger community here in Cincinnati by making sure everybody has a truly affordable place to live. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one.